All right. There. Let's make sure we put our phones away, right? Question?
Can I get a copy? I wasn't able to left it out.
Or you left it at home? I don't have one right now. Don't think so. Because I only printed enough copies for like quizzes for each one copy. So I'm recording this, so if you want to follow along. So for the GDSR, there's a formula. If you watch the lesson, it calls for three things at the top here in no particular order: monthly mortgage payment, monthly income property taxes, and monthly heating. Those are the three things that we need for GDSR. If it's not a monthly amounts, you need to do something to it to turn it into a monthly amount. Okay, so in this case, in this particular case, the mortgage is 1450.56. You may have to calculate this. I've seen exams where they give you enough information to figure out your monthly payment first on a TVM solver, and then B is like a GDSR question. Okay, so be prepared for that. But in this case, they gave you everything you need. Okay, so the top here, what do we call this? This combined is the housing costs, right? All housing costs. And we take our income, we divide it by 12 as well to get this as our monthly amount. So we compare the housing cost to our income, and everything is a monthly. So you're supposed to have this or that. Okay? You can do percentage or decimal if the question doesn't specify. Either one is fine. Okay? So 2 marks for that. I would say the way I would mark this is I give half a mark for each conversion, and then 1 mark for actually correctly calculating and doing the rest. So that's where you get your 2 marks from. Based on the TDSR, right? What is the maximum credit could spend on monthly? Spend monthly on costs not related to housing. Okay. So maximum monthly spending, if it's 40%, right? You go 40% of his monthly income. And where does the 40% come from? You have to watch the lesson. TDSR, 40 is the magic number. GDSR, what's the magic number with GDSR? 32. So would this particular mortgage, would this person be approved for the mortgage? No, it would be over 32. So you have to mention, you must mention the 32% when asked to explain whether or not the person would qualify. You have to use the 32%, the magic number, okay? For TDSR, it's 40, so you cannot spend more than 40% of your income on things. So 40% of your income is this. And then so excluding housing, so basically what I did, in case you're wondering what's all this mess there, the housing amount that I had here, I subtracted from the 40% of my income, and so this is what remains, right? The 267.78 is what I need there. And obviously, if you made a mistake up here, it will translate, but you won't lose marks here. So I'll give you 1 mark for figuring out the 40%, and 1 mark for subtracting the housing from that amount to get your maximum expenditure. Okay? Total debt service ratio. And then we talked about, this has to do with liabilities, assets and liabilities. I talked about that in the video, I hope, right? Yeah. So assets is anything you own, liability is anything you owe, right? So you could have a house where some of it is like you consider asset the value of the house, and liability would be anything you owe on the house. Okay. So in this particular case, everything that has an A on it is an asset, right? So a car valued at this much, a bank account, an RSP, credit card balances, that means you owe, that's a liability. Personal loan, a liability. Student loans, liability. Condominium value, asset. The mortgage is what you owe on it, is a liability. So you kind of categorize everything into assets and liabilities. So to figure out the net worth, I add up all my assets, which is 194,100. and I subtract all of my liabilities. If I add up my liabilities, I get this number. So this person's net worth is 24,700. It is positive, I should say. If this number, if you do this correctly and you get a negative, your net worth, it just means that you owe more than what you own, right? So that's not a good thing. So watch that. So that's your net worth, 1 mark for that. What is the debt equity ratio? There's a DER. I also talk about that. This is all about financial ratios. You go total liabilities, you subtract the mortgage from those liabilities, and you divide it by your net worth. So my net worth that I calculated prior comes into play here. And so when I take all my liabilities, which I got from here, I subtract the mortgage, I get 14,400. Divided by your net worth, your DER is 58.30% if you did this correctly. So 1 mark again for that. Based on this debt equity ratio, how would you describe Yanni's financial standing? You would say her liabilities are too high as it surpasses the 50% mark, right? So 50% is kind of like the cutoff. You don't want more than 50% in this particular case. All right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch the lesson. I'm actually going to add 2 formulas to that slide that I would like you to have on there. So this page is worth 7 marks. Okay, so just put it at the top, put your name and last name at the very top of it. I'm going to continue rolling the tape here, and we're going to go to our booklets. So grab your booklet. And I want you to go to the equity ratios page. I'm almost there. 78. Thank you. That's what you were saying, right? I thought you were saying something to your neighbor. So when it comes to the service ratios on page 78, next, did I put the magic numbers down here on the side for you? I did? Okay. But the 2 formulas that I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure I didn't add them. I want you to add them somewhere, ideally inside the box, but if it, obviously that won't work. So maximum housing costs, okay, will always be 0.32 times monthly income. And obviously this is a maximum housing cost and it's going to be monthly. Okay? And from this one, if they ever ask you for the maximum mortgage payment, you take the max housing that you calculated above, and we're going to subtract the heat, monthly heat, and monthly taxes, property taxes, that is. So please add those to your study sheet. Make sure you have that. So I have that. Let me just look at my sticky notes here. I had a few things. For leasing, when it comes to leasing, okay, that was, what page was that on? I have to find it first. $69? Okay. Let's go to 6.9. I just wanted to add, because when I looked at your leasing responses, I was just gonna add a few things. Page. I want to look at the pros and cons that I gave you here. Pros, you always drive a new car, lower maintenance, safer. Cons, you never. Can I add to the cons? Wear and tear charge. So often, if you beat that car up pretty good, like it just looks more worn than what it normally should. This is on page 69. Wear and tear charge. So that's a con, right? Like they could charge you extra if the seats are kind of worn out more than they should. They may charge you extra, okay? Or if anything is scratched up, like if the car is scratched, guys, it's expensive to repair. And that's usually how they get you to buy it. It's like, ooh, this is gonna cost like $5,000 to redo the paint on that one. But if you buy it, no worries, right? Then you just buy it and it's yours, right? So, but that is a downside. One more pro I just want to mention that the payments are lower usually. I'm gonna add that at the top here. Payments are lower usually because you're not buying the entire car, you're just paying for that amount that you're gonna drive it, right, for the year or 2 or 3 years that you're gonna drive for. So the payments are lower, so you get to have a luxury vehicle for less per month. You could probably not afford it if you had to buy it, or that could be the case. That's why you would opt for leasing rather than buying. Okay. Another thing that I noticed here, the formula. Let's go to the formula. I want you to make sure the lease cost, just the lease, right? Essentially, it turns out to be the down payment, but no taxes. This is what a lot of you stuck with the formula. That's why I'm so careful with formulas. I'm not a fan of formulas, but pretty much all of you, not all of you, but the majority multiplied your payment by 1.12. But if taxes are included in your payment, you should not be doing this. Okay? So I don't know if you want to make a note. Omit if tax is included in payment. Okay? So I would say omit that if it's already included. On the other hand, some of you miss the fact that when you're buying, when you're owning the car at the end of the lease, you take the residual value and you need to tax at 12%. Some of you forgot that part. Okay? So I'm not too worried about, like, when I looked at a lot of you lost a lot of rounding units, all of that stuff. Every half a mark was 1.5% off your mark, right? So I was a little picky with that. Overall, you're going to be fine, okay? So when I give you the quiz back, you will know what I'm talking about. Also, I should wait till the quiz, but the mileage charge and the wear and tear is often waived if you actually buy it. So that was actually stated in the question. Mileage is due if you're not buying the car, right? But if you buy it, it won't be charged. So just read carefully when you answer those questions. So that was my sticky note for leasing. I have another sticky note here. Hold on. Yeah, the maximum loan and mortgage. We're gonna do that we're gonna add that to our notes here. So let's go to 78. Sorry, I'm jumping a little bit because I have sticky notes and I'm just making a note so I don't forget. We go to 78, okay? But then we're gonna go to page 77, which is a blank page before it, I hope. Is it blank for you? Half? Do we have at least half a page? We don't need a whole lot. But it has to do with this topic here, okay? So when we go to the previous page, we're gonna block off about half of it. And I'm gonna make a question on the fly here, okay? Maximum mortgage / loan amount. I will highlight that later. It's a very important one that I need you to understand, okay? Biff is buying a house for, a house at a rate of 3% compounded quarterly over 20 years. That's the amortization. Okay. If he can afford $1,200 per month, what is the maximum house price he can afford? I will make a note. Note, he saved up $50,000 for a down payment. How would you do that one? TVM solver. A few of you tried TVM solver on simple interest. Please don't. It's not going to work for you. Okay? Simple interest, you need to use I equals PRT or the other one. A equals P plus 1 plus RT times 1 plus RT. Okay, so how would we do this? Compounded quarterly, that's 4. Our payments are monthly, right? That's what the question is kind of hinting towards it. So we've got 12. Our future value, we want that to be 0 because we're paying it off eventually. And my payments are $1,200 a month. Present value is what we're gonna solve for. Like, what is that mortgage that I start off with? Like the big loan that I'm gonna take, right? Interest is 3%, and this is 20 years. Some of you are gonna have to explain to me, you have everything right. Everything is good on paper, but you get a different answer. And I was scratching my head. I couldn't figure it out sometimes. So you only lose half a mark in that case, but I don't know what happened. I couldn't figure it out. So some of you might have to tell me, oh, I probably did this, right? Let's figure out PV. watch when you, I think, my suspicion is some of you are missing the fact that when you change PY, it changes CY automatically. So I wonder if that's sometimes messing with your answer. So let's go find present value. So 216, 519, 04 is what we get. Is that the maximum he can afford? There's still, what about the down payment? Technically, maximum house price. This is it. This is the part of the lesson I want you to. You take what you get here when there's a down payment. You go 216, 519, 04, and you just add whatever that person has saved up for a down payment. Because remember, we always go by the house price. Sorry, this is 66, 519, 04. I just made this up so for you to, if that ever shows up, you're prepared. So this is the maximum house price BIF can afford. Because remember, if you wanted to figure out information for BIF, you would do what? You would take this, subtract the down payment, and then put that in there, correct? So you were kind of working backwards. We're adding the down payment and saying, hey, you could technically afford a house worth $266,000 in this case. So that has to do with the everything you did with the ratios is kind of like that's what the bank is gonna do. You're gonna go to the bank and they're gonna say, I want the house, and you're gonna ask them what's the maximum I can afford. Like what can I? Well, they'll be like, well, how much can you pay a month? They'll do the GDSR thing, right? It's like, well, your maximum housing, right, or mortgage amount could be $1,500, $1,600. They'll base it on your income. And then they'll go backwards, figure out this, see how much you have saved up for a down payment, and then say, well, you can look for a house. They're usually going to give you a range. You can look for a house between $250,000 and $300,000, okay? Or right, and then it depends on obviously how much your down payment is, and so forth. So, just a side note, I want to highlight the top part. So the maximum mortgage amount, and I'll leave it at that for now. Question? For sure. Like, oh, this part? This I already gave you before. To reduce the interest paid. And you all had very good answers there, so I'm not worried about that one. Honestly, like, out of all my classes, you all knew how to reduce the interest paid. For the most part, like I might be off by one, but you were all like, oh, just increase the payment, or just increase the down payment, take less time to pay it off, make an extra payment. Like you were all like bang on, so I'm very proud of you guys when it comes to that, because that's what I need you to know ultimately. Do you know how to save interest? Okay. What else did I want to say? I feel like I didn't do a good job at telling you about